Why punish the punctual? Uh, okay, don't need that. Definitely need this. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Here's Tom with the Weather. If you haven't been here for a few weeks, I'll explain who I am and what I've done with David in a minute. But the great question we ask here is there a God? Is there a genius painter? Or is that all just a figment of our monkey brains, our need to find meaning in a meaningless universe? Is Darwin giggling in his graves at the thought of us thinking about consciousness? Are people created in the image of an intervening higher power, or are we creating gods of our imagination? These are the questions we ponder. Welcome to another Zoom meeting and podcast of Here's Tom with the Weather, where we investigate a plethora of, that's a David word for sure, of higher powers that populate the vast universe of 12-step recovery for many of us, where alcoholics and other drug addicts riff out on step 3, trying to find and discover a higher power. Step 7, meditation and purpose in life, as prescribed by the founders in Alcoholics Anonymous, who encourage us to find some power beyond our own lone resources. Here at Tom, we promote tolerance and empathy. So the whole spirit here is live and let live. You will encounter people here who have different worldviews than you do or I do, and tolerance is our code. Quick message, this is a free podcast, and contributions are also welcome. If you are so inclined, PayPal, gillwriter@hotmail.co.uk. We will even go to the extent of putting that in the chat for you. Just a reminder, if you are from the rooms, this is not an AA meeting. It's just some people getting together. Now, if you have been away for a while, David is in North America. He's on a quest to discover the ritual of Thanksgiving, and he'll be popping in and out to Here's Tom with the Weather whenever he can. And we hope he does. He came in just to say hello a little while ago and passes on his regards. He's in Boston right now. He's lined up the vast majority of our speakers over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Tonight, today, this afternoon, wherever you are coming in from, we have the honor of having Helen Hamilton spending some time with us. I'll read you a little something from helenhamilton.org, which is: Satsang is a formal spiritual gathering with an awakened teacher where we discuss awakening and self-realization. Satsang is for those who wish to have a direct experience of truth. The word satsang comes from Sanskrit, and you can correct me on that, on the pronunciation there, Helen, where sat means truth or God, and sang from sangha means a gathering. So in satsang, we can find help and support of others invaluable, and many people find it a safe place to open up and be in the company of other like-minded people. This February, Helen is hosting a workshop based on one of her, she's got 7 books. The 2 that I have a vague familiarity have to do with the ego. I think I've got it somewhere here. Yes, dissolving the ego and reality check. Helen, welcome. I want to say that when I describe what you do, that will be familiar to most of us. But we were talking before we started rolling a little bit about how you came to your place in life where you are actually teaching and helping other people who are on a path of enlightenment. And we always want to get the dirt on people. How did it happen? How did you get here? And tell us a little bit about your journey, please.
Wow, depends how far back you want to go. Firstly, thanks for having me on. It's really lovely to be here. Right from as far back as I can remember, my very first memory was just feeling really, really scared and like something was really wrong with the world or something, with myself. And that feeling just kind of persisted really right up until after I had my third child, and I sank into a very deep depression, which looking back had been kind of building for quite some time, but I didn't recognize it. And I had a relatively good life at the time, a good relationship, 3 kids, and a business that was working. And there was just this kind of hole inside that wasn't, I couldn't fill it with anything at all. And around about that time, I had started drinking. I'd always kind of drank a little bit too much, but it reached a point where it was beginning to spiral out of control. And I had to admit, that I was suffering from depression. I got some help with that. And it was just this, something is very, very wrong with me. I don't know what it is. I didn't even know I was looking for anything until I kind of accidentally stumbled across meditation. My friend gave me a meditation CD, and I tried it, and I was just so desperate at that point. I was on the verge of suicidal at that point, and I had to find some peace somehow. I didn't know, so I was kind of this. I'll try this crazy meditation thing, and I experienced this kind of intense bliss the first time I meditated, and I thought, wow, this is something I didn't even know existed. This kind of different place that I was going into, and I kind of naively thought that was going to be how I'd experience it every time I meditated, but of course it wasn't like that. And it just led me on this inner drive to find out what this bliss was and how to have it all the time, and what do I have to do to live like that. And then I kind of began to stumble upon some non-dual teachers, and began to experience more and more peace. There's a long, it depends how much background you want, but I could go into that more. But it was quite some time after that first experience of meditation before I began to really experience any peace on a regular basis. Yeah, it's found out I was looking for something. I didn't know what it was until I found it. I was looking for this peace.
And so you find yourself now, I guess you still have mentors that you turn to, you teach and provide guidance for others.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that wouldn't be unfamiliar to a lot of the people in this room who find themselves in recovery from alcoholism, and the worst thing that ever happened to them becomes all of a sudden an asset. It
was a turning point for me. There was nowhere else to go but up, as I'm sure many people can identify with here. It's I just knew I couldn't go back into that dark hole again, and because I wouldn't make it out again. And so I discovered, that certain types of meditation can affect the brain chemistry, and I wanted to do everything I could to, work with that to find some kind of happiness again. It was just, well, I'm sure many people can understand, if being through a depression, it seems like it's never going to end, that you're never going to climb out of that. So it's like, okay, I need to make sure I don't go back here again, ever.
And what moved you to sort of share it and teach it to others?
Not really at all. I was never intending to teach this, but a couple of people just said, you've got a real way with words with this. And it just started out as 4 of us, me and 3 friends, in a coffee shop every Wednesday afternoon. And we'd just meet and have coffee and cake and talk about stuff. And then they kind of got into meditating as well. And it was like that for 3 or 4 years. And then we just sit in my house here, a couple of us. It was never a formal teaching thing. It's just kind of grown from there, really, because people were finding some resonance with how I was expressing it and finding that it was helping them. I'm quite a shy person, believe it or not. It's not something I would choose to do, really, but it just happened.
This comes across in interviews I've seen you given, and I find that like eyebrow lifting, that you must feel compelled to sort of carry the message, so to speak.
Yeah, it's just what seems to want to happen, and I've given up fighting it now. I tried all different kinds of things to make a living and enjoyed some of them, and right as I was really resisting doing this, I was running my own business, cleaning houses, and I just absolutely hurt my shoulder completely, and couldn't continue cleaning anymore. And life was kind of saying, okay, this is the way you need to go, even though I was really resisting it. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what happens when I do this.
And in this course on dissolving the ego, one of the things you sort of say on the website is, if you do what I did, you'll get the same results as I got. In other words, you're not setting yourself up as some expert who is at some sort of higher plane, but just someone who's gone through the process, and you're happy to share that with others.
Yeah, I was always kind of looking for what other people had done practically to get out of suffering, and to be able to stop listening to my mind so much. And I was really obsessed at one point for a long time with, what have people actually done that have found some peace? And that's really all I'm kind of showing anyone else is, and I'm still learning myself, still working through stuff. There's always a deepening that we can all continue to do. I don't feel like anybody's ever actually kind of finished. And if someone was to stand up and make a claim, I'm all finished now, I would kind of step away from them quietly.
That's the thinking: if you see the Buddha on the street, kill them, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Guaranteed to be a false prophet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about your ideas about dissolving the ego? Because that's something that would resonate with a lot of the people here.
Yeah. For me, when I say ego, I mean that kind of rigid way of thinking we have about ourselves and about life. And we tend to have very set thoughts about ourselves, most of which we're trying to escape. In addiction, we're trying to escape from the pain that our thoughts are causing us. And really, dissolving ego for me is just examining these thoughts and really checking out if they're actually true, because we tend to just take them on. If our mind says something, we just listen, and it's really just more of a switch over to questioning those. Is that still true? Am I going to still automatically believe this thing that's causing me so much pain? The idea that I'm not good enough or I'm not safe. These ideas are all inside us and play havoc with our life and disturb our peace completely. Just a question of looking at those and examining them. Are they actually true? We've listened to them, we've believed them, but are we going to continue to do that? And, combine that with some meditation as well of what we actually are, beginning to experience what we actually are more and more, and it can make a real difference then.
Well, yeah, I'm sure some of the things I believe are true, but an unexamined life isn't a life worth living, is it?
Mm-hmm.
You talk a little bit about how at a low point in your life, you found that meditation, forget about the awakening, it helped regulate your serotonin levels,
Mm-hmm.
and your mood and your sense of well-being improved from meditation. Not that I would
Absolutely.
say everyone on SSRI should meditate and throw away their medicine, but you found like real material changes in your whole outlook on life just from something, this inward work you did.
Yeah, and I was on medication, and I did have some counseling therapy as well, and that also really helped and contributed. But I just felt kind of numb. I wasn't in pain so much, but I just felt numb, and eventually I just wanted some joy back, or wanted to feel alive. I hadn't felt alive in such a long time, and began to find if I just did a little bit of meditation every day, then I could stabilize my own mood a bit more. It seemed to just be a lot easier. And also then I was much clearer. If I was kind of heading back down that hole again, I could see it and I could do something about it then before it was too late, which made a huge difference, obviously.
Is this what you mean by, finding a teacher who is awake, just someone who has a sufficient amount of self-awareness that they're not living a totally reactive life, that there's some distance between stimulation and reaction where they can be more mindful about how they go about their day?
Yeah, for me, it was fundamental when I recognized that it's my thoughts about what's happening that's really upsetting me rather than what's actually occurring. And that I could do something about that by really being more conscious of what I was thinking, which took a little courage because we tend to just push away our thoughts, and I did too. But to actually start to examine them, you've got to kind of really look at them, and then you are able to respond more than just this kind of knee-jerk reaction, as you were saying, this kind of, otherwise we're just walking around and we've got all these buttons that people keep pushing, and you're just kind of led by emotion then all the time, and it's not a fun place to be.
Well, I don't think a reactive life can be a meaningful life at all. Mm-hmm. Because the weather is going to determine how my day goes instead of, my own wits or inner resources. And so what was your biggest surprise? Like I came to meditation, and I don't consider myself someone who'd be a teacher of meditation, but I tried a number of different disciplines. Try to bring a beginner's mind to all of it, but I'm also fighting my biases, my preconceived ideas. What was your biggest surprise about the sort of world of meditation compared to what your preconceived ideas would have been?
I think that's a good question. The biggest, probably that the simplest one was the most effective. There are there's probably as many different techniques as there are people that want to meditate now, and my mind wanted something very complex, and I just found that impossible to maintain. So it was quite a surprise that the simplest thing was more powerful for me, at least, than doing something much more complex, some technique. And that was quite, because I'd always been a student of the mind and really interested in the mind, ironically. And so my mind got really excited with meditation. Okay, I can take this to a whole, different place with different techniques, but they just didn't help at all. And I found eventually just the simplest. I just started by, I was doing a Kundalini meditation. I had no idea what that was at the time, no idea. And I just sit there and close my eyes and look at my third eye, with my eyes closed, I'll try to. And it just began to feel really nice, and I couldn't suffer while I was doing it. And that was, okay, that's easy enough. I can do that. It was just very, very simple. It was a breath of fresh air, actually, the simplicity of it. Definitely. And it's powerful.
Well, we're kind of like trying to write about music, or tap dance to explain architecture. I'm wondering if you would be willing, Helen, just to sort of lead us in a guided meditation just for a few minutes, just to give us sort of a sense of your process.
Yeah, we'll probably do a different type of meditation now. I found that's a bit even easier than that. We can do that now if you want to. We can go with that.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Okay, so we'll just take a few moments to, and you can do this meditation with your eyes open or closed. However you want to sit is absolutely fine. And we're just going to spend some time being here. And I know that sounds like, well, we're all here, but let's just take a moment to be present here. Instead of trying to get something out of this session, let's just enjoy being here. And there's no technique here with this meditation. It's very, very simple. There isn't anything we need to achieve. And you really can't get it wrong. So that's always good news. We're just showing up here. We don't need to have anything happen. We're not even trying to find peace. We're just being here and enjoying, stopping traveling just for a moment. We don't need any goals out of this. Just taking a few moments, just all here together. And if your attention wanders off with thoughts at any point, which it will, and it's okay, just kind of bringing that back to just being here, kind of recentering ourselves. And you may find that your mind is a little bit confused. It wants to try to get somewhere. That's okay. Just let it be. We don't have to be always a work in progress. We can just be here. Who we are right now is already enough. Just taking a few moments like this just to be. And at any point, if you find yourself trying to get somewhere again, just relaxing, no blame, doesn't matter. Just coming back to being here. Just enjoying how it feels to be here. This moment is rich and deep. Just staying here with me. And you might find that your body begins to relax a little, or it may be restless. Your mind may be quiet or full. You don't need to change any of that. It's okay. Just letting your mind be as it is. Letting your body be how it is. Just resting here like this. This where there is nothing you need to achieve. We're just being here. We're not becoming anything, we're just being. Just relaxing and enjoying how it feels to just be here. And again, if you find yourself distracted by some thoughts and sounds in your environment, sensations in your body, it's okay. Just recentering yourself, just being here. There's a quietness available here, a rest. Making no effort to control anything. There's nothing we need to change, nothing to do or undo. You might begin to feel yourself relaxing a little bit. And if your body is relaxed or tense, it doesn't matter. If your mind is noisy, it's okay. Just let it be how it is and just be here. There's nothing to achieve here. And any time that you need to, you can just recenter yourself here. I'm just here. Just being here. Just resting here. Recognizing that it feels nice to just be. We can give ourselves a break. Not trying to be anything at all. Just being as we are right now. Quietness and contentment are here for us right now. There's nothing we need to do or become to experience peace. Just by being as we are right now, being here, we begin to find peace. So whenever you're ready, if you want to open your eyes, you can. You don't have to. And even though we begin to talk and interact again, we can still experience this peace. Just recognizing we're here even when our bodies and minds are busy. We're still right here. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, not only was it an honor to be asked to substitute in for David so he could go on an extended holiday, that was payment in full.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Michael asks if you could just sort of explore a little more, walk us through the process of examining our thoughts. And I'll just put a caveat that I sort of came to this with the idea that I wanted to have good thoughts and get out all the bad thoughts. Bad thoughts go away. Good feelings come to me, but that's not what you're describing here at all, is it?
Well, I tried that. I tried to keep the ones I wanted and get rid of the ones that weren't working for me, I suppose, like everyone. But what I found was that if I hold on to even positive thoughts, I've got to experience the opposite of that. But really just beginning to examine our thoughts, it for me was we've been calling it contemplation, but really to really just recognize that for anything that we encounter in our life, we tend to reference our mind for advice about that only, and that there is a deeper way we can experience ourselves than just listening to our mind. If we listen to our thoughts, then we're going to experience that thought as real, and our body will feel the emotion corresponding with it through the brain chemistry that we were talking about before. And if instead we can ask if that thought is true, and with a sort of an open curiosity, we can begin to experience a deeper space inside our being, beyond the thoughts, and begin to experience some peace. We might experience thoughts and then emotions in response to this question: is this thought true? Is this actually true? If we stay with that question beyond the thoughts and right through the emotions and stay with it, something beautiful begins to happen, that there's a kind of opening up inside our beingness, and a deeper, richer space is available to us. Most times we're just kind of missing out on the fullness of this moment because we're listening only to our thoughts. So examining thoughts, questioning them if they're true, is really a way to just kind of go further into this moment, go deeper than the mind. We're not saying those thoughts are right or wrong. We're just open. There's a curiosity that's more important than anything. And in that, you begin to feel like we were just doing in meditation, really, the same kind of openness with that. I don't know if that helps, Michael, or if you want to.
Yeah, you got the big thumbs up, and thank you there.
Good.
To everybody here, if you're new to Here's Tom with the Weather, welcome. I hope you like us. We have a website. Here's Tom with the Weather is simply htwtw.com. Pretty simple. There's a Facebook page and a Facebook group, a private group you can join. You've already got the Zoom address, but for those listening on the radio, if you ever want to come to a live show, it's ID 882-154-98348. And the passcode is Tom, really quite simple. And if you want to see past episodes, look on YouTube, just put in quotes, Here's Tom with the Weather podcast, and you can get them all. You can binge watch Here's Tom with the Weather. And again, it's completely free, but just covering the expenses. If you need to give it away to keep it, by all means, if you use PayPal, you're looking for Gilwriter, GILWRITER @hotmail.com. and operators are standing by. No, no, they're not, but David would be very grateful. And for the rest of you, just thanks for being here and being loyal followers. In people like me who have suffered through addiction, often in the early days, we have problems with impulse control and expectations. I have a friend who says, if you have stress, ask yourself what unrealistic expectations you're holding, and you'll find the answers. So I hear people all the time presenting themselves as, oh, I tried that. I did a meditation for 20 minutes. It's not for me. I went on a 3-day workshop. It's not for me. Somewhere between, start where you're at. Anybody can meditate right now to, there is, you can't get there from here. It needs practice. What would you tell someone fairly new to meditation who was frustrated by their 20-minute try at it?
It's that's a really good question. Meditation is something that it helps to just let go of our ideas about it, as you were saying, Joe. It's like if I have an expectation of what it will be like, as I said, that very first time I meditated, I had this intense bliss. So of course, it was this strong expectation. This is how it's going to be every time. And then the very next time, it was just an hour of my mind going absolutely crazy and feeling completely restless, like I just wanted to jump out of my skin, feeling frustrated and angry because I wasn't experiencing the same thing. So an attitude of whatever happens today in my meditation is exactly what needs to happen, then that's really, really helpful. And letting go of the idea of what a good meditation is, and perhaps more importantly, what a bad one is. If I sit and like we were just doing in meditation, and my attention wanders 100 times and goes with thoughts, can I just hold that as, okay, that's exactly what was supposed to happen today for me in meditation? It doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. And if my attention doesn't wander, it doesn't mean I'm doing it right. It's just honoring what happens today. What happens today in my meditation is what needed to happen. Some of the most beneficial meditations I've ever had is where I've just felt completely, I've sat down to meditate. I don't want to do this. I just really would rather be doing anything other than this right now. And the whole time I felt restless. And, it was, if I set my timer for 20 minutes, it was the longest 20 minutes of my life. It just went on forever. But those meditations taught me that whatever happens is what's supposed to happen. And I can relax a bit more about it. Something knows what needs to be done and what needs to work through. And if some energies need to move inside me, some restlessness or some emotions, or if my mind's going crazy, then can I honor that a bit more? Can I trust that process a little bit more? It is all about expectations, as you were saying. What do we think needs to happen in this time, and can we let go of that a little bit more?
That is such a relief to me personally. I don't know about the other boxes on the screen here, but when you were saying in the meditation, in examining our mind, it may be busy or it might be quiet. That's okay. Like I try to do competitive meditating.
Me too. I was there, right there, but it taught me that is just not an effective way to find peace. My mind said, I'm going to be the best meditator there ever has been. I'm going to nail this thing, and it was a learning curve that it doesn't work like that. So I'm sure we've all been there. Yeah.
So what was the first book you wrote? You mentioned your friends told you, you know, you have a way with words, you have a way of expressing this in a way that is transferable. Tell me about your journey as a writer.
Oh, that was a whole process. And the first book came, Dissolving the Ego was the first book actually. And it's really a collection of ways to recognize what we really are. So we've just done one of those in one of the meditations, just being here, just being present. And it was just this strong sense that something had to come through me, and to write it down. And I never actually intended to publish it. It was just getting some ideas down on paper, but it just began to flow. And same with the other books eventually. It taught me a great deal about patience writing a book, definitely.
And so from there you wrote your first one. What's the process for you? I was recently watching everyone here, every one of these boxes is a writer. Part of our process is a type of self-authoring where we do a personal inventory and we make a list of, you know, what we've done in our past. We make a list of people we've harmed in our addiction, and the writing is a process of helping us. We don't figure it out and then write it down, but through the writing, we figure it out. And is it like that for you? I heard this Chicago University writing professor say that his teacher always told him to write the outline, you know, get completely prepared and then do your thing. And he always he had to discover it by writing, and then he wrote the outline later to hand in just to satisfy her, but it wasn't his process. So what's it like for you in starting a book and your journey through it?
I tended to start with an outline in my head, and maybe I'd write that down, you know, basic chapter titles I might want to go with. But the actual writing of it really just showed me that it's just going to be as it is. It's going to come out as it comes out. And sometimes it's just flowing so fast. I got very frustrated that I couldn't type as fast as I wanted to. It just seemed to come together in some way that I couldn't possibly orchestrate, you know, that it just happened to form into reasonable chapters and all of that. And of course we had to proofread it and edit it and all of that stuff, because my typing is really not that good. But it was always different to the idea I had in my head. It always came out better than the idea that I had in my head, definitely. It was just one of those, you can imagine something, can't you? But when you actually do it, it's different.
Yeah, that's been my experience, all except for it just flowed part. There's a couple
that was another lesson, Joe. It was like,
yeah.
okay, I've got an hour now. I'm going to sit and write some of this book. I've got some spare time. I sit there with my laptop and nothing happens. And then I'm on the school run, taking the kids to school, and all of a sudden, all these ideas are just coming, and I'm like, why now? You know, and it was just, that was a lesson in itself. It'll happen when it comes.
Yeah, it's still learning, isn't it? I got to remember that. John asks a question I wish I'd thought of. Good question, John. Will you unpack the idea that self is an illusion?
Okay, good question. It depends what you mean by self. For me, recognizing in my own journey that the person I thought I was actually a thought constructed self. That was what I thought I was had been referenced as this kind of holy grail, as you know, everything that happened to me in my life was weighed and measured against this kind of thought constructed image of myself, inside my mind. And that really, life, of course, life shatters that illusion, doesn't it, in terms of keeps pushing those boundaries of what we think. And it really forced me to look deeper inside, to beyond this idea that I was a separate being, separate from everything else and everyone else, and into sort of a more fundamental ground of being, something much richer and permanent. So, but to first, they had to really examine this thought constructed self that we all have, layers and layers of that, don't we? We just who we think we are, and that gets more and more complex as we move from childhood into adolescence and then into adulthood, and it becomes this big kind of monstrosity that's going on its own. And just to look at that and say, well, is that actually who I am? Is that actually, am I only this? And I began to discover that there's a lot more to me than that, and to everyone. That's just this kind of surface layer that we can experience ourselves as. But we are that also. We are our mind also. We can be, use thoughts and use our mind, but just finding out there's more than that. Underneath that, there's a richness, as we began to experience in meditation.
Yeah. Now, in that whole duality, non-duality thing, that I'm still trying to, maybe I'm trying to think about it too much, but like the whole yin yang idea that opposites attract, and the whole is more than one part. Is that, would you agree with that, or is that another way of saying the same thing? Or
I think there is, in my experience, there's only the one being here, but it's expressing itself in all these individual, not separate, but individual and unique ways, as all of these beautiful beings here on this session, and everything we see around us and everyone. And it can express itself as a human being. It can have the conscious choice to choose something better. So it definitely can be more than the sum of its parts, so to speak. But my deepest experience of myself is that I'm not separate to anything, which really means there's only the one being on the fundamental level. All these bodies are unique and individual, and we don't lose that individuality just by searching deeper what we are. We just come to see that that's not all we are. I don't know if that kind of answers the question, or if you want to ask again.
Maybe I don't want to reveal how slow I really am.
This is a good conversation, isn't it? It's good to,
Yeah, it totally is. And I would invite others to join in. That's a dumb question, Joe. Why don't you ask such and such? Please feel free. I would look forward to other people jumping in on the conversation.
Yeah, certainly.
Anybody before we wrap up the formalities? And maybe you'll stay after we stop recording. Sometimes people like to ask one-on-one without the sort of being on radio sort of thing. Marty, was that a hand up?
Yes, I have a question.
Hi, Marty. How are you doing?
I'm well, Helen. Thank you.
Good.
Wait, I have to go to gallery here because I don't want to look at myself when I'm talking. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So first thing I wanted to say is I feel a real sense of peace just sitting here listening to you talk, whether it has to do with meditation or not. And this idea of, well, it's not a new idea for me, but the consciousness you're talking about and the explanation about self, I'm kind of at a point where it's like any thought I have is a total expression of my own ego or self, or however you want to call it. And that in itself lends credence to whatever I experience through any of my five senses. And so what you're talking about is going beyond that. I mean, that's my understanding. When you go beyond that, you don't have the tactile sense of experience. You have this greater sense of experience that is what I'm understanding to be our true nature. Although it's very difficult to remain in that state because the ties to the outside world are so strong. So the first question is am I understanding you correctly? And the second part is, I don't really think there's anything that can be done, but it's like relinquishing the ego. My understanding is accomplished by recognizing what the ego really is. And at that point, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so it's not that hard to get to that point. It's not so easy to stay at that point. And so at some point, there's some sense of desire or work involved in remaining there. And I'm just wondering if you could express any thoughts on that, if we're even talking in the same chapter here.
Absolutely. What you said there was very profound. Very profound. It was, I loved what you said about when we would begin to understand what our ego is, our mind is, then it begins to dissolve anyway. It begins to, you see through it literally. I'm paraphrasing what you said there, so just jump in if I've got it wrong. But there is some aspect of my being that is before and beyond the body and mind. I am those two, but I am also something that is not a form, something that is formless. And it's really only as we begin to discover that, exactly what you said there was the same for me, that I couldn't stay in that. It seemed to be sporadic at first, and some experience or some emotion or something would kind of pull me back out into what I used to call a normal level of consciousness, my normal way of being, thinking I am this body mind only. So just if we can accept that that's going to happen, that doesn't mean something's going wrong, that when we begin to experience something deeper about ourselves and some peace, naturally out of that, a desire is going to arise to want to experience that more. And in order to do that, we're going to have to begin to look at these ideas that our ego is holding on to, these quite rigid ways of seeing ourselves and the world. And so we begin to do that, we might find we're just sliding back into peace anyway. There's a belief in most people I come across, there was in myself, that if I've temporarily lost that peace, it's because I've done something wrong. I've screwed up my meditation or something. But really, it's actually that something's going right, that I'm actually getting deeper into the core of my being. And the desire is growing to stay like that, to experience that more. And to do that, I really have, these things are coming up for me to examine about myself that are no longer true for me. Maybe that I'm not good enough, or whatever the belief is that's coming for us. I don't deserve peace, or I don't deserve to be happy. Those things are going to have to be examined in order to keep feeling this. So what was the first part of your question? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure I remember what the first part of the question is.
I was really hoping you did, because I can't.
If I try to analyze each and every thought on where it comes from, that just goes into this giant rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's much simpler than that, really.
If I let go of that thought, or recognize that any of these negative thoughts or even positive thoughts that come up are only distractions keeping me from where I want to go. It's kind of like the ego knows it's threatened, so it rears its ugly head to fight back, and it fights back in sometimes subtle and sometimes very gross ways. And the grossest way is how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we get caught up into this idea of I have to fix this, when in fact, all you're doing when you do that is to nurture your own ego. So anyhow, I'm kind of getting off track here. I'm falling deeper into Marty's philosophy of life, which can be a very dangerous place to go at times.
Yeah. But that is, I loved what you said there, that it's something does rise up to kind of try to protect itself as we begin to experience something deeper inside ourselves. Our mind, our ego will try to fight to hold on, because it thinks that that's how it keeps us safe. It doesn't like change. It doesn't like change in our thoughts, especially. So it will try to hold on in that way, won't it? And we've all experienced that. We want to sit and meditate, and our mind says, no, don't do that today. Or we want to just do some contemplation, and suddenly there's something much more exciting that we want to do. So there's that kind of subtle resistance going on. But just noticing that, it becomes more clear that mind wants to keep it the same, and that's what it does. It's not necessarily evil or trying to stop me. It just likes things the same. It likes to keep things in the status quo.
And the other boxes had a lot of bobblehead up and down when you were asking the question, Marty. So you're in the zeitgeist. We've got another couple of questions. I just want to say next week we have John McAndrew here with us. John McAndrew was the one-time director of spiritual care at the Betty Ford Center. He now does grievance counseling. Everyone here has lost someone in the COVID era, and he has done a lot of workshops on grief and grieving. He's a brilliant guy. I worked with him once on a weekend workshop for people in recovery called An Atheist and a Religious Guy Go on a 12-Step Call Together. And it was a lot of fun. So join us next week if you can, and plenty more coming up. We got a couple more. Debbie, please come in with your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking us on that lovely meditation, Helen. That was lovely guidance. I had a funny moment today, waking up in real peace and everything just going dum, 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 dum. And it was beautiful. It was like, I don't know what was happening, but it was really, really lovely. And I stopped for a moment to reflect on the gratitude I felt. Instead of just carrying on with that flow, I just kind of stopped and went, oh, gratitude. And then greed slipped in really, really fast. Is that a moment at which you might stop and examine that, or possibly put it into a little notebook and catch up with it later and spend some time mulling over that thought? Because I was blown away when it happened. It was like, what?
It's almost like something inside of us says, oh, hang on a minute, we're feeling too happy. We're feeling a bit peaceful here. Let's create another issue to solve or something, isn't it? And I used to think it was like one of those whack-a-mole things, you sort one issue out and another 12 pop up. But, I think it's really important to follow your own guidance at moments like that. If you feel, I really want to look at this right now, what is this about? Or, you might also just get the sense of, I can just turn away from it and go back into this happy peace that I'm feeling right now, gratitude, as you were saying. And either of those are fine. You'll be kind of, even if you just kind of turn away from it right then and go back to the peace and quiet and gratitude, you probably feel intuitively later to go and look at that. It might just pop back into you. What was that really about? There's some kind of, so did you get a sense today when it happened, what you wanted to do, whether to investigate or just leave it?
I was just a bit stunned that it had come up, but I did go and take it to a conversation with someone else that I have kind of quite interesting conversations with, And she's an elderly lady, and she sat there and she just said, I don't know. And I thought that was nice, you know. Yeah, it's okay to just not know sometimes.
Yeah.
And just, you know, yeah, doesn't belong here right now. Just
sometimes these energies move, you know, if we're in a quite open place, feeling quite relaxed and peaceful or happy or whatever, sometimes that openness allows some old energy to move. So we might notice some kind of negative emotion come up inside that. And, you know, like this greed you were saying, and it seems very irrational, like, why is this happening now? But it's really just because we're relaxed and we're open, and these energies can start to move as they need to. They're also trying to find peace, these negative emotions. And in order to do that, we have to feel them. I'm sure you've experienced. Most of the time we kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to, you know, I'll feel you as long as you go away, you know. So in that kind of moment of openness, something can pop up. So you can just tend to, if you can sort of just check in with yourself, then what do I feel like doing with this? Sometimes there might be an urge to just let it be there, to just kind of let it, you know, sort of honor it as best you can. Sometimes there might be an urge to do something else, go, you know, sort of distract yourself. But you'll always, none of us are very good at first at listening to our own guidance. And for me, it was a huge learning curve to get back in touch with what I felt was right for me in this moment. And, you know, maybe that's something you can embrace as well, that what do I really, you know, and if I don't know, as you said, that's okay too. It's beautiful, isn't it? I don't have to have it figured out.
Yeah. And in just talking, it's answered the question in a way, because that piece was so lovely, and just the gratefulness for how everything was lining up and flowing. And then the greed, I think, just popped in because I was having such a lovely time knowing that I'm letting go of a job and I'm just going to be okay. And then that other thing came and went, oh, but what about?
You can't just relax and let go. That's not going to work. You know, how are you going to, yeah. And just noticing that kind of attitude and energy coming up, and seeing, just if you can just be with it. That's always the most effective way with it. And it might just disappear on its own sometimes. It's totally normal, but it's a little weird when it happens, you know. So all this peace, and then suddenly this anger pops up, or some fear or something, or
yeah. When you were talking to Debbie, I got this idea, you know, don't try so hard instead of try harder, right? Don't try so
absolutely.
hard.
That's been the whole process for me. You know, can I just be with myself and actually like myself? And that was a fundamental shift. You know, if we're all honest, we're trying so hard because we don't really like ourselves. We're trying to be a new and improved version or something.
There's a question from the chat that curious minds want to know. Right behind you is a Buddha, and above the Buddha is either some images or some letters. What does that mean? That
is the Om symbol. It was actually painted by a friend's daughter, and it's supposed to be the first, well, everybody has a different recognition of it, but it's the first primordial sound, the first vibration of the universe. And really quite nice to chant the Om. It kind of gets you in a nice vibe. But I just find it quite a powerful centering thing for me. So it's just kind of, you know, because I spend a lot of time, you know, in this particular place. I'm not showing you the rest of my room because it's a real mess, but this part looks really nice, you know.
Yeah, for any of you who just can't get enough, again, I would encourage you to visit helenhamilton.org for more information. Ian, can you take us out with the last question of the day, please? You're still muted, sir.
Oh boy,
There we
Hi,
go.
Helen. Thank you very much, John. Hi, Helen. And yeah, thank you very much, especially for the encouragement. I try to meditate every day and get extremely frustrated. My mind is just, I've tried the simple ones like just count your breaths till you get to 20. I don't think I've got past 10 before my mind's rocketed off somewhere and forget it. And people say, well, observe your thoughts. Well, I just suddenly realize you've gone off again, and it's very frustrating. But the question is that I find that this, I wouldn't call it bliss, but it's a sort of extreme contentment when I'm out walking, probably in nature.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I am connected. I can't explain it another way. I'm just connected.
You're doing really well. That's a perfect explanation.
And that's it. But there's no effort involved. It just comes to me.
And actually,
it's a bit like people say.
You raise a really good point there. Instead of judging our meditation by what happens in the meditation, we should judge our meditation as to whether it's making a difference in the rest of our lives. Because I went through a phase where I was really good at getting into very deep meditation. I could make my mind go quiet for hours. But the very moment I stopped meditating, I was right back into this horrendous noise and fear and guilt and shame and everything, just rampant. And I found that the most effective meditation may not feel effective while it's happening, but I'll begin to notice more moments in the rest of my day where I'm just feeling a little more calm, or somebody says something and it doesn't push such a big button as it used to, sort of those reactions we were talking about earlier, that it's more of a response than a reaction. So if you're having those moments where you're feeling more connected, even if they're just few and far between at first, your meditation is working. And if we can just kind of stop looking at what happens during the meditation as whether it's working or not, is it changing my life? Am I gradually a little bit more peaceful each day since I've been doing this? And if so, to me, that's a successful meditation practice. Because that's what we really want anyway, isn't it? We want more peace and happiness through the rest of our life. Sorry, I interrupted you there. You were saying
Well, that was extremely encouraging, and thank you very much. It is. There is something I experienced as well, is that, and I was on one of your satsangs, and I experienced it during the satsang, is that I'm sitting here in this world, or this generated thought place. There's nothing behind it. It's a strange feeling. It's as if I'm looking through the walls. Just it's a strange. I don't know. Is that a normal experience, or?
It is, but it can be very, very weird when it first starts to happen. For me, though, there was a sense, as meditation really began to deepen, beginning to recognize that all of this isn't really what it looks like. All of this is the same consciousness appearing as a table or a human being or a cloud or a planet. And that was really kind of trippy when I first began to experience it, like, whoa, because everything began to feel kind of the same. There was the peace and quietness, whatever I was experiencing, whether I was talking to someone or in deep meditation, it began to feel more the same. But that is very different to how we normally think about ourselves and the world and everyone else. So just because it's what's actually real, it doesn't mean it's not weird when we first begin to touch upon it. It feels very different to what we've usually experienced. But it's really under that same thing as you were talking about, being connected, that sense of connection is really, none of this is really what I thought it is, and it can't really hurt me in the way that I've thought. We're all kind of reacting to things that we think are there, or the beings that we think are separate to us, and all of that. And when it begins to break down a little bit and there's a little bit more space in our beingness, it can be very strange at first. In fact, it was really quite shocking for me at first when I experienced it. Like, this is really bizarre, really weird. But as I stayed with it, it got more and more peaceful and quiet to kind of be like that. You probably find that developing as you continue.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm at that feels trippy stage, but thank you very much. I'll persevere. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Really good question.